All right, week 4. So this week your news release and media list is due. And I did talk about this a little bit last week, but hey, only 3 of you watched my video, so that's great. Make sure that you're keeping up on these things because that's how you're going to succeed in the class. So for those 3 of you that are probably watching this one, the news release and media list is due, which means that you need to, if you haven't already, you need to have a conversation with your client about some sort of newsworthy item that you can put in a press release. So I talked about this a little bit last week, but you need to come up with something with your client that is worthy of garnering some press. And so that means it could be some sort of an event, some kind of update that's important and newsworthy, right? So some sort of service-based event, whatever that could be. So when you do this, you need to talk to your client about what kind of major highlights have they had going on. Do they have some kind of event that's coming up soon that's worth promoting? Have they recently had some sort of successes that they'd like to discuss in the public? And so again, the idea here is that hopefully you can find something timely that is relevant, that is newsworthy, that you can write about with the hopes that they could do a review and maybe do a few updates on the document that you prepare, but that they would be able to actually use this. So that's the first thing. So I talked about this last week to give you some extra time, to set up some time to talk with your client, to make sure that you have something newsworthy to talk about. Because at this point, it's Tuesday, right? We didn't have class on Monday, classes, school, and so you've got until Sunday night to write this. Now, the other thing that's going to be really important is you really cannot contact your client on a Friday because they're not going to have the time. So you're not going to be the highest priority if you're emailing them and say, hey, can we have a conversation about this? You got to do that today. You can't wait until Friday to do that because they're not going to work on the weekend. Just because your deadline is Sunday, that gives you a couple of days then to talk about it. But you need to be communicating with your client early in the week. So that means like today or tomorrow. You need to be able to be in communication so that maybe you won't actually have a conversation with your client until Friday, but you put that out there so that they've been able to give you the time in their schedule. Because if you tell me, hey, I wasn't able to talk with my client, but you didn't actually contact them until Friday, the earliest, of course not. And that doesn't change things for your deadline because you know what your deadline is, and so you should be thinking about this as you plan out how you're going to complete these assignments. You should be thinking about how you're going to be in touch with your clients so that you can get these assignments done, right? And I know that this happened to some of you on the client executive bio where you were able to get it done because you didn't ask for that communication until at the end of the week. Now, just because this is an online class and you are probably waiting until the end of the week because you're prioritizing other classes, that's not going to work in this kind of a class because this class requires you to work with a client and you have to be respectful of the work week and the way that works for the client that you're preparing your documents for. So make sure of that. Now, when you have these conversations with your client, you want to talk about, you want to find out what kind of exciting events are going on, what kind of exciting updates do they have that they can share with you? Do they have anything, that they do need to promote? You can tell them, hey, this assignment is a news release, and so I wondered if ideally my work could be useful to you. So is there anything that needs promoting that I could take a stab at drafting that for you? That's a good place to start. Now, I do say in this assignment that if you're unable to come up with something super timely, you can play with the date a little bit. And that's because sometimes things are a little bit further out, right? You wouldn't actually prep the news week until maybe, something that's happening at the end of next month. You probably wouldn't, want to send this out this early. In that case, I don't even think you need to play with the date. You can just write it that far in advance and just have it sitting there. If it's something, though, that they just had that's really important that, and they don't have anything coming up until spring, but they just had an event for Labor Day weekend, then you can play with that date a little bit and act like it's coming up. And do some of that, liberal editing in your document, and that's okay. If you have questions about that, you can also email me in advance and let me, help you out and decide if you need to play with those dates a little bit or what. So that's the gist of what you should be writing about for this assignment. Now, as you move into it, you need to write this as a news release, and as my understanding that when you took writing for media, which is the pre-write for this class, that you have already written a news release. And so that's great. That means you've already got some sense of what these look like. So you should be using the inverted pyramid format style, right? So making sure that you're, giving us the basics and getting detailed as you move down so that when we first read that news release, we get all the information we need, the who, what, where, when, why, up in the front end of that first paragraph. and then move into those details. And when I say that the last paragraph should be boilerplate, that should be that boilerplate statement that you say about your organization. Now, again, it's my understanding that you've already gone through this, so you understand. But that should be that boilerplate statement that you say that as they get to the end of the news release, then they have that bit of information about your organization and contact. Make sure that these are always in AP format. Like I said, those are going to be some significant deductions when for AP errors that you should know. You should have the current edition of the AP style guide. You also have access to the internet. So obviously that's where you're submitting these, that's how you're submitting these, so you should be able to keep up with any of those updates and making sure that these are clean, perfect grammar, perfect AP. A good 5 paragraphs in length. Again, that last one is a boilerplate. Make sure you include a quote. That's another reason why you need to have a conversation with your client. Now, you can either gather a quote from them, or you can prepare a quote and make sure that it's approved by them, but do have some sort of quotation, some solid substantive quotation, not just, hey, things are great, that means nothing. It should be a substantive quote that helps add to the piece and gives that personalization. Make sure that you're using a captivating headline and one that's appropriate, that gets the attention based on what the actual content of the news release is, and then appropriate symbols. So also make sure that you're using, again, AP style when you put the Columbus GA, right, capital G, lowercase a, period. Don't give me a postal code. That's the number one way for me to know that you're not even trying with your AP style. And then at the end of it, make sure you give 3 of your pound signs, your hashtags at the end to indicate that this is the end of the news release. And then the second part of this is going to be, and this can go on a page that's at a new page, but on the same document. You don't have to submit 2 documents for this. But then you'll need to list 5 real target media that would be appropriate for you to send this piece to. So you need to include the publication name, the contact person's name and title, and the email address. You should also include a recent article written by one of the reporters that you're targeting. So you only have to do 1 recent one, so you should have a list of 5 contacts, right? So maybe you have somebody over, for example, if your first contact is going to be somebody at the Ledger, right, make sure that you come up with the correct person that you would send this to based on the content of your news release, and give all of that, the Ledger, the contact person's name, title, email address, and then you'll do that. That's all you need to do 5 times for 5 different ones. And then you should also, though, under that first one, include, and you can just include a link. You don't have to copy paste the article or anything, but include a link to the publication that demonstrates that this person that you've contacted does publish content that is in line with the content that you've prepared in your news release. So you're showing that you've vetted this, that you've shown that you're not sending this to a sports journalist when you're talking about a Relay for Life fundraiser or something like that. So those are the components of this assignment that you'll put in there. I've got some additional readings for you to take a look at to help you as you craft your news release. So if you think about the distribution aspect, you think about how you're crafting this as an inverted pyramid style, and things like that. So make sure that you look at all of those. Just a heads up, I can see who's viewed this content and who hasn't, and so at this point 4 of you have looked at the content for this week, and I can see which 4 of you that is, and that's great. Good job, you 4, but a lot of you haven't, even though I said you may want to look at this in advance. So you haven't, a lot of you, but if you're watching this, you're probably one of the 3 then that watches the videos, and so whatever, maybe I'm preaching to nobody, but the choir, but you, I can't see all that, so make sure that you are reading all of these and taking a look at them so that you're prepared to write these documents that I'm asking you for. And then this moves me back to last week, so only 3 people opened up the PowerPoints for last week, which I hope means that most of you are just reading them by the book, because again, this is all going to be content that's on your exams, and you will you'll need to know it, because you won't be able to open up anything other than the exam on your computer while you take it. So you'll use Respondus to block you from opening anything else. So do be keeping up with this. Even though this is an online class, you should still be keeping up week by week. That's how you will successfully move through this course. So that's my updates on the news release assignment for you. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. And also, if you want me to take a look at a document, you can send it to me 48 hours in advance, and I'll take a look at that so that you can make any changes before you submit it if that's of interest to you. So if you want to get that to me by Friday, I would look at it for you and give you comments on what maybe you could address to get a few more points in that assignment. Again, I only got 13 bios, so that's another issue that you want to take a look at. Make sure you're actually submitting these and submitting them on time, because the Dropbox will close. These are deadlines. This is as if you had any deadline in the real world. No one's going to give you this pass if you're habitually late on assignment. So make sure that you are writing this well enough in advance that you are able to submit your documents on time, because that Dropbox will close and I won't accept a late assignment for that. So that is my week 4 update, and good luck, and make sure you do go ahead and talk to those contact people that you've formed relationships with thus far.